A very warm welcome to you all. We have a book launch for Home, It's Complicated by Saba Karim Khan. In conversation with our distinguished speakers, Junaid Zuberi, Omar Shahid Hamid, Khaled Anam, Farrukh Karim, and Zaffar Khan. Please give them a big hand. I would like to start off by introducing Saba Karim Khan. She is an author, award-winning filmmaker, and educator whose writing has appeared in The Guardian, The Independent, HuffPost, Dawn, The Friday Times, and Express Tribune. She studied social anthropology at the University of Oxford and works at NYU, Abu Dhabi. Before joining the academia, she served as country marketing and public affairs head at Citigroup. We are honored to have you today. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. A very warm welcome to the launch of Home, It's Complicated. This is a non-fiction anthology which features 24 distinguished writers, and they've all written a personal essay for this piece, and 5 of them I have the honor of being in conversation with this afternoon. Just in terms of what to expect, we're going to have a moderated panel discussion for the first part of today's conversation, and that's going to be followed by a question and answer session, and there'll be a book signing at 1:45 p.m. at Liberty Books. To my right, I've got Omar Shahid Hamid. Omar is an acclaimed Pakistani novelist who lives in Karachi. In addition to his writing, he's got a very interesting trajectory, as many of you would be familiar with. He served as a senior counter-terrorism police officer, and in between writing his books, Omar has survived several attempts on his life. He's investigated the murder of a journalist in Kenya, and he's had his offices blown up by the Taliban. So a lot to unpack with Omar about Pakistan this afternoon. Next to Omar, I've got Khaled Anam Saab, who's a veteran actor, a household name, doesn't really need an introduction. He's performed in children's theatre and in regular theatre across India, Pakistan, Germany, and the UAE. To my left, on the extreme left, I've got Farrukh Karim, who is the Chief Economist and Chief Strategy Officer at UBL. Next to him, I've got Zaffar Khan, who is a literature and arts enthusiast and now runs her own company in the UAE for the promotion of the arts in the Middle East. And to my left, we've got Junaid Zuberi, who is the CEO of Napa and has had a prolific 28-year career in the financial services industry between Canada and Pakistan. So very warm welcome, and thank you so much for being here. Now, before we begin and before I move to our panelists, I just want to give you a little bit of the backstory to Home, It's Complicated, and kind of how this anthology came about. Incidentally, it was about 2 years ago that I was at KLF, and I was speaking to the publishing manager at Liberty, and I said, I'm fascinated by people's relationship with Pakistan, how they make sense of this identity, how they grapple with it, the push and the pull, the agonizing moments, the happier moments, and this question of what does it mean to be Pakistani, which is incredibly complex and difficult to answer. So each of these panelists and each of the contributors in the anthology have tried to answer this question of what their relationship with Pakistan really is like. The other conviction which I had for Home, It's Complicated is that Pakistan, which is a country of over 240 million people, over 70 to 80 languages, and fascinating natural diversity, cannot be reduced to a breaking news ticker. Way too often we hear about Pakistan from the headlines, ji yahan bomb phat gaya, ji yahan, there's poverty, there's crime, there's the oppressed woman. वो सारे मसले हैं, and we absolutely don't want to downsize that in the anthology. But these pieces are really raw, passionate, visceral pieces where people have spoken about personal tragedy, loss, violence, dreams getting shattered. But at the same time, they have also spoken about love. They have also spoken about hope. They have also spoken about this unflinching loyalty. Koi to cheez hai which keeps us coming back to Pakistan, chahe hum yahan rahein ya bahir rahein. There is something that keeps that association very strong. And hence, it's complicated, which is part of the title of the book. Fun fact, the title of the book is inspired by Omar Shahid Hamid's beautiful evocative essay in the book, जिसके बारे में मैं अभी 1 minute में इनसे पूछूंगी और बात करूंगी, so you'll understand why the book is called It's Complicated. Just 1 more minute to explain to you the contributors in this book. There are 24 different voices, and I have spent the last 2 years very intentionally trying to create a book that is diverse and inclusive. I didn't want to rehash the same 5 voices that we keep hearing in Pakistani writing. Or is wajah se we've got scientists, we've got economists, we've got academics, we've got theater and music lovers, actors, you name it. The whole mix is in the book. And the curation was a 2-part process. I invited people like the 5 people on stage to contribute. I felt they had a strong voice. I felt they had a story to tell. But I also put out a call for more general submissions, because as a writer myself, publishing can be such an echo chamber. It's so hard, it had to be demystified, and I wanted to break that open. And we got some fabulous new voices through that process, and some of them are in the audience today, so I hope you get to see them. With that context in mind, I'm now going to turn to our panelists. Omar, I'd like to start with you. Omar's piece in the anthology is a letter to his son, who you say Omar has spent most of his young life abroad and may not be gripped by the country's issues in the same way that Omar is. You write about violence, about personal tragedy, you write about being a cop, and then about being a writer. And here's the punchline with Omar's essay, no spoilers, but Omar ends his piece by saying that if this were a Facebook page, my relationship status with Pakistan would read, it's complicated. So Omar, let's start there. And without giving too much, talk to us about why this status would read, it's complicated.
Thanks, Saba. This was a very difficult piece. And actually, when Saba first reached out to me, I'm a very lazy person. मैंने कहा, okay, I'll do it. And then and she had said, can you send a sort of draft of what you are thinking of writing by a certain deadline? And me being me, it was like I think 2 days left to the deadline. I was like, अच्छा हाँ, अभी कुछ सोचेंगे, समझेंगे. Then I actually sat down and started writing this piece, and a lot of stuff actually came out that I had never really looked at before. I've written a lot of books, but I've never, and I keep saying this, that whenever I write a book, I'm never a character, or I've never based a character on myself, because I find self-analysis very difficult. I feel that I'm not very good at it. But this book, it just kind of opened something, and I hadn't really even understood. And in fact, I wrote the piece kind of in one go, in a couple of hours or something, and sent it off to Saba. But it just, just that, I think the original the sort of question that Saba had posed was, what is your relationship with Pakistan? And exploring that, I've certainly had my ups and downs with this place, but it was something that perhaps I wasn't even ready to look at. But I've tried to capture that, and as Saba pointed out, it matters more to me now because my son is 15, he'll be 16 in a couple of months' time, and unlike me, and in fact probably I guess most of us who are on this stage, he's spent half his life abroad, And the likelihood is that if he goes off to college in another 2-3 years, he'll spend a much larger proportion of his life out of this place than we have, हम सारे जो हैं. And so हमारे जो उस तरीके से, the way that this place drives us crazy, for lack of a better word, he or his generation will not perhaps have that. And it'll be difficult for them to fathom what we feel when we see a news sticker, or when you see Pakistan lose to India in a cricket match or whatever. So it was just to try and explain, and I think if I would never be able to verbalize any of the stuff that I've written, right? So it was just an attempt to try and explain to him that this is where I came from, this is where he came from.
Thank you, Omar. It's a very powerful piece, and I'm sure it's going to resonate with a lot of people. Khaled Saab, you've written this emotionally charged and deeply resonant piece, which I can't say enough about. Khaled Saab's piece is called Kaleidoscope of Dreams, and he talks about this earlier vision of Pakistan, which was a beautiful dream that he had, and how that dream goes on to get sort of shattered. So we see the full spectrum, really, which is so powerful. And then, Khaled Saab, you've also hinted at how the map of the world can change, and maybe getting back with India and getting rid of some of this animosity, some of this vitriol will offer us a way out. Talk to us about the dream that was first so beautiful and then gets sort of shattered, and why getting back with India might offer us a way out.
Well, getting back to India is just an idea. एक घर आपने बनाया है, वो आपसे नहीं चल रहा है, एक चीज़ आपने बनाई है. If you can't run it properly, then ठीक है, दो भाई लड़ गए, मिल जाओ दोबारा. बीच में एक दीवार नहीं भी, एक दिमाग में दीवार आपने बना दी है. We work together. We are more. I feel that Pakistanis are more Indian than the Indians, because the Indus is here. So India is because of the Indus. Why we are forced to abandon that claim over India is I don't understand that. It's like I sit here and I tell them that no, you are a different country. No, we are not different. We are the subcontinent. There are different places earmarked by the occupying forces. They felt it's important now, cut, snip, 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 snip on the map, and we fall for it. There has to be, okay, 47 was a political reality, and like I said, there are two countries were formed. One was Bharat, one was Pakistan. Why? First of all, we must stop calling it India. We are as much India as any other country in the subcontinent. We are Pakistan, they are Bharat. And if you can't run it on your own, बड़े भाई गलती हो गई थी, कोई बात नहीं यार, अब sorry हमसे गलती हो गई, आप आ जाएं. Let's get our resources together. Let's stop spending on the arms and ammunition and nukes and whatnot. There's so much more that we can spend on education, healthcare, people. हम सबका फायदा हो सकता है. वो तो उस सेंस में कि हमसे वो छोटा, हमने जो 2 कमरे लिए थे, उसमें से एक कमरा हमने अपनी नामाकूली की वजह से जाने दिया. अब एक कमरा रह गया है, उसमें हम बैठे हुए हैं. So it was a beautiful dream. It was a kaleidoscope of dreams. I remember, I've written it in my book. I remember Ayub Khan passing by in his open Cadillac with Queen Elizabeth in Kimari. We were in Kimari. I've seen that time. So we had a beautiful dream, but नहीं हो सका. वो मैं समझता हूँ कि मुनीर न्याजी का एक शेर है, हमारे दोस्त यहाँ पीरज़ादा सलमान ने हमें सुनाया था. ख्वाब होते हैं देखने के लिए, उनमें जाकर मगर रहा ना करो. तो हमने देखा था ख्वाब, अब उस पर रहना छोड़ देना चाहिए अगर हमसे वो अकम्प्लिश नहीं हो रहा. क्या करना पड़ेगा, कितनी जाने देंगे, कितना खून बहाएंगे, कितना झूठ बर्दाश्त करेंगे, कितना धोखा खाएंगे, और आंखें बंद करके बैठे रहेंगे, नहीं सब ठीक है, सब ठीक है, सब ठीक है. I think we are being unfair to the younger generation. It's only that we accept our shortcomings. It's only when we accept, okay, this is the way we went wrong, and we pass on the truth to our younger generation. I think this, your book, your collection will go a long way to achieve that. That's the reason that I'm still very emotional. I still, when I listen to our Qawmi Tarana, I get tears in my eyes. I still, even after knowing the truth, 65 के Qawmi नगमे सुनते हमें रोना आ जाता है. हमने वो टाइम देखा है ना, तो हमें तकलीफ होती है, लेकिन हमें ये होता है कि यार किस लिए, for what? But I think your book will go a long way. This is a document of the broad spectrum people of Pakistan. I'm sure मुझ जैसे और भी लोग सोचते होंगे.
बिल्कुल Khaled साहब, thank you. Farrukh, sorry, my mic is here, so it's going to be a little tricky, but I want to bring you in here. Farrukh's written a piece that's called Dharti Ma, and it's a beautiful, evocative title where he draws this intimate connection between one's own mother and the motherland. Farrukh, I want to ask you about this idea of Dharti Ma, and also talk a little bit about how Pakistan is so deeply ingrained in your psyche, and it's such a central part of your story. So talk a little bit about Dharti Ma and both those things.
Sure. So basically, being an economist, what I've had figured out in the last 17 years of looking at Pakistan's economy is that really there is very little hope on the economic side, and that's just the brutal reality of it. Be that as it is, what I have seen within the circle that we are in, friends, family, the first thought, which again I've alluded to in the piece as well, is that the instinct of self-preservation kicks in, where you're like, okay, I need to escape this reality because it's not good enough, it's not palatable, and that's kind of what most of us have done in some shape and form, whether we live here or we've moved abroad. However, I think this concept of Dharti Ma has, it's a realization that's come in the last couple of years that you can't really escape your motherland. You can't escape your roots. They will be there to stay, whether you live here or you live in North America or wherever else. So we've got all this negativity, much of it is real. And how do we deal with that? What I find as a collective is that the country, as Pakistanis, we are going through an identity crisis because of the issues that the country faces economically and politically, most of which are not of our own making as, average Pakistanis. And that's the concept of how do we sort of understand the narrative by taking on board that yes, things are bad and don't look great in terms of the economy, but this is still our homeland, it will continue to be, and how do we find hope within that, and how do we celebrate fellow Pakistanis and some of the commendable work that is being done in this country without feeling an identity crisis or a sense of shame being associated with the green passport.
Yeah, definitely. Amber, I want to bring you in here. Amber's essay starts with this really poignant quote by Khalil Gibran, and it says, "Between what is said and not meant, and what is meant and not said, most love is lost." Amber, your piece talks about patriarchy, it talks about love. Amber talks about her mother's passing in Pakistan while she was abroad, and she wasn't able to even be there in those final moments or when the news broke to her. But something that really struck me about Amber's piece was this feminism that she talks about. And that feminism is not just based on rebellion, it's based on resilience. It's the kind of feminists that our mothers and our grandmothers were. बट उन फेमिनिस्ट्स का उतना जिक्र नहीं किया जाता जितना आज की औरत का किया जाता है. एंड सो अंबर, आई एम गोना पिक अप फ्रॉम देयर एंड से, Talk to us about the title and why, the initial quote by Khalil Gibran, why you chose that. And also, when I initially asked you to contribute, you were quite hesitant. So what made you open up with so much honesty and so much vulnerability in what is a deeply evocative piece?
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. Thank you, Saba, for including me in this distinguished panel with amazing people. The title of my essay is Ordinary Lives, and it's a brief anecdotal account of my life growing up in the 70s and 80s in Karachi, in the backdrop of the social and the changing political landscape of the country then. The 70s and the 80s are marked as infamous decades in the history of Pakistan because of Bhutto's assassination and General Zia's martial law, which the country endured for almost a decade. And it had an impact on my family as well. But my essay is not political, it's very personal. My household, like many others of the time, was dominated by a male hierarchy, where the patriarch's role was that of a provider. But the focus was on establishing authority. Now, these men, these patriarchs, were not evil men. They were philanthropists, they were generous with their earnings, and they had a strong sense of community. And yet, and they were well liked in the social cachet and within the community, they were well respected. And yet, they chose to maintain an iron fist with the women of their household. So the quote that I start my essay with, it resonates deeply with my relationship with my father. And I always pondered why these men, these patriarchs, they couldn't extend the same sort of emotional generosity to the women of the household, which they did to the community. As far as the feminism aspect goes, I wanted the reader to see from a different lens the women of those times, most of whom they were homemakers, housewives, whatever you may call them. They were real life heroes too. And their strengths, their valuable contribution to the families, and their resilience is as commendable as rebellion against it, because these women, they fought silent wars, and they stole moments of happiness from their daily strife, from their challenging lives, and they found reasons to smile. And I feel these women are not acknowledged the way they should. So.
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely, Amber. Junaid, your story is this classic dilemma in values. Junaid's piece is called Lost and Found, A Life Between Two Worlds. Junaid, you returned to Pakistan from Canada, you write in the piece, on a one-way ticket to be with your parents. Not an easy decision, of course. You find your way to becoming the CEO of Napa. You take it to new heights. Something that I found really interesting in the essay that Junaid writes is that when he first came back, you say, there were lots of acquaintances, but there weren't friends. There weren't people you could just pick up the phone and call. And now Junaid is moving back to Canada to be with his other family. Talk about, so many of us can relate to this dilemma, right? This inner conflict of straddling two different worlds. Talk to us about this inner conflict, Junaid, and also the experience of being in Pakistan over the last few years.
Thank you. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Saba. Well, it's a struggle. अभी आपने जो फर्रुख से बात करी, इनका जो piece धरती माँ. So the word dharti, and there's another word, vatan. I always struggle to find an equivalent of these words in English. I cannot describe them in one word in English because jo emotions, jo feelings, जो पेन इन अल्फाज के साथ जुड़ा हुआ है वो किसी एक लफ्ज़ में बयान नहीं किया जा सकता. एंड आई एम स्टिल स्ट्रगलिंग टू फाइंड कि धरती और वतन मेरे लिए क्या है. मैं यहाँ बैठा होता हूँ तो मुझे ये महसूस होता है कि शायद वो मेरा वतन है. वहाँ हूँ तो मुझे लगता है कि पाकिस्तान इज़ वेयर आई बिलोंग. और मैं वहाँ पाकिस्तान को ढूंढ रहा होता हूँ अपने अंदर. सो ये जो एक कांस्टेंट स्ट्रगल और एक कांस्टेंट बैटल होती है. एंड देन द फैक्ट दैट इट्स द थर्ड टाइम इन माई लाइफ दैट आई एम गोइंग टू sort of wrap myself up and move somewhere else from a position of comfort to a position where I'll have to start all over again. And it's not easy because each time when you feel that you've sort of found your feet, you have to start all over again. And how do you deal with that? It's at some level it's traumatic also, but it's, कुछ कहा नहीं जा सकता कि इसको किस तरह से डिस्क्राइब किया जाए. इट्स डिफ़िकल्ट. जो मैंने अपने पीस में लिखने की कोशिश की, अपनी कहानी में लिखने की कोशिश की, क्या ये कुदरत का कोई मजाक है किसी तरह का कि वो मुझे एक जगह टिकने नहीं देगा. और जहाँ पे मुझे लगा कि मैं अब मेरी जड़ें कुछ मजबूत हो रही हैं, वहाँ से फ़ौरन मुझे उखाड़ा जाए और मुझे सर्कमस्टांसेस कहीं और लेके जाएं. फिर मुझे एक बैटल. आपने पूछा कि पाकिस्तान का मेरा एक्सपीरियंस कैसा था. Strangely, I was born in Karachi, I grew up in Karachi, I lived all my life in Karachi, but when I came back to Karachi 4 years ago, I felt that I was a little bit of an alien over here in many ways. But लोग मुझे कुछ मुख्तलिफ नज़र आए. जिन लोगों से मैं वाकिफ़ था बहुत क्लोजली, मुझे लगा कि उस पूरे अरसे में जो मैं मुल्क से बाहर रहा, they moved on, and obviously they moved on. They followed a different path and I followed a different path. And when I came back, I could not really be where they were. And मेरे जानने वाले बेतहाशा, लेकिन दोस्त बहुत कम कि जिनसे आप दिल की बात कह सकें और अपनी बात शेयर कर सकें. सो ये एक अजीब किस्म का डिलेमा. And I'm a very, very, I would say, deeply introverted person. But when it comes to writing, मुझे ये लगता है कि I start pouring my heart out. And I don't even realize that. It's only when I've written something and I put it out there that I realize कि मैंने ये क्यों लिखा और मैंने, what was the reason why I wrote what I wrote. So, लोग कहते हैं कि you come across as vulnerable and you come across as sensitive and as honest. Yes, I'm honest to the extent that I'm writing, but there's so much that I want to write, there's so much that I want to say, but I cannot. And I do hope that one day before I finally leave on a one-way ticket, I tell my story. So hopefully one day.
Thank you, Junaid. Thank you so much for sharing that. Omar, I'm going to request you to read a little bit from your piece because I want the audience to get a little bit of the flavor of the writing in the book and, kind of what the voice is like. So if I could ask you.
Of course. I started these ramblings as an attempt at an explanation for my son, to allow him to understand in the years to come a little bit about me and a little bit about this place he calls home. Reading these words back, I fear my attempt has gone horribly wrong. Who knows? Perhaps, like the PhD candidate who once tried to prove to me that my books had veiled Marxist undertones, my son may find some hidden understanding that eludes me. I don't know if when he grows up he will choose to remain here or makes a new life for himself elsewhere. I don't know if he will ever choose to come back after leaving this place 3 times as I did. I don't know how I will react to his choices other than to accept that they will be his choices and not mine. The only advice I can offer is that Pakistan is not an easy place. Recently, after an interval of 22 years, I met the father of the young man who was murdered on my first day as a police officer. The father was an honorable and courageous man, and he fought long and hard to get justice for his son's murder. He said to me that at the end of his struggle, he had learned one undeniable truth about this country. To get justice, you must have feet of iron and hands of gold. It was one of the saddest things that I had ever heard. That's not to say that Pakistan is not worth fighting for, or having your heart broken time and again. All things of real value in life are worth fighting for, but that's a bit of a cliche. The real question is always about what value you place on them and how long you're willing to fight. And those two variables often change with time. I haven't done a very good job of explaining my relationship with Pakistan. It's because I don't really understand it myself completely. Let me try again in a more succinct manner in terms that are more recognizable to the social media generation. If this were a Facebook page, apologies in advance to my son who believes Facebook belongs in the same generation as the transistor radio, my relationship status with Pakistan would read, it's complicated.
Thank you, Omar. So my follow-up to you will be, and to you and Khaled Saab both, that, so much has gone wrong. Hope is at an all-time low. Every time we think it's rock bottom or koi aur surprise milta hai, why do both of you choose to stay? Why do you make that choice?
Maybe we're suckers for punishment, Khalid sir.
Why do I don't know, it's home. It's where I am. It's reality. कहाँ जाएंगे अभी से बुढ़ापे में क्या बुढ़े दरख्त को उखाड़ के कहीं और लगा देंगे जाके यार नहीं I'm an optimist by nature. I feel that even now, even if we've hit the rock bottom, even if we are going to go down further, we take the one step in the right direction and we start moving. I'm hopeful. I'm very hopeful of the younger generation. I find my sons are more in line and in tune with our values and the principles of the country, and जो सही गलत की पहचान आज की जनरेशन में है. हम तो बड़े एक उस पे थे ना, एक शेल में रखा गया था. मतलब इमेजिन मैट्रिक में हमें ये पता ही नहीं था कि आर्ट्स भी कोई सब्जेक्ट होता है. हमें तो ज़बरदस्ती साइंस ही पढ़ाया गया था. वो तो जब इंटर किया हमने कहा हैं मैट्रिक में भी होता है, अच्छा यार. सो हम तो एक बड़े protected species थे. So where else? This is the only country we have. This is the only home we have. हम इस धरती के हैं, जैसे उन्होंने कहा धरती माँ है. हम इसी मिट्टी से उठे हैं, हम इसी मिट्टी में जाएं. और अगर रिज़्क कहीं लिखा होगा, हमें रोटी कहीं बुला के ले जाएगी, हम चले जाएंगे. दुनिया हमारी है यार, ऐसी क्या बात है. चीनो अरब हमारा, हिंदुस्तान हमारा, रहने को घर नहीं है, सारा जहां हमारा.
Saba, this thing that I read was actually selected by Saba because I said, "Yaar, tum batao ki kya hua hai?" Because as I said, I've had a lot of difficulty after writing this piece, kind of digesting it. To answer your question, this is who we are. Right? This place made me. Whatever I am, good, bad, ugly, not ugly, वो यही जगह, इस जगह की वजह से. And at the end of the day, खालिद साहब ने बिल्कुल सही बात कही. रिस्क हो सकता है कि हमें कहीं और मिले. But you can't run from yourself, right? So, क्या करें?
Yeah, absolutely. Farrukh, I think it might be telling to have your piece read a little bit because we're talking about Dharti Ma, so if I can ask you to read a little bit from your piece.
So I'm just reading a few excerpts. They're not like a continuous piece. My mother's loss is personal to me and my family. But the other mother, as 240 million Pakistanis collectively grieve, is our Dharti Ma, our motherland, Pakistan. Pakistan has been dying by many accounts for the last 5 decades. beginning with the separation of East Pakistan in 1971. A steady decline has been visible through dictatorships and democracies alike. Our best and brightest have been moving to greener pastures since the 1980s. However, in the recent past, there is nothing steady about the decline. It feels terminal and existential, with a sense of impending doom. That many Pakistanis with the ability and means have moved and continue to move out of the country should come as no surprise. Humans, like other animals, share an instinct for self-preservation, for themselves, and more importantly, for their progeny. With no roadmap and dwindling hope, who can blame them? However, the oft ignored aspect of this flight to safety is the emotional toll it takes on the nation and its family-oriented culture. So many families are divided across the globe. Parents living away from their children in their twilight years. Siblings living their lives far away from each other, often at opposite ends of the world. And then I move on. As Pakistan's trials and tribulations come to the fore and become obvious to all, Pakistanis both within the country and abroad feel a profound sense of loss. Some of us may not be conscious of it, but there is a weight and toll we all carry. While it is hard to be optimistic today about our country's prospects ahead, it is harder still to be devoid of hope. My quest for hope in my homeland is a real one, but not one I wish to conduct in a delusional manner, hoping against hope for miracles. However, I recently realized a most unlikely source of hope in our country. When Pakistan was dumped out of the 2024 T20 World Cup ignominiously, our then President Arif Alvi tweeted, "Nothing in Pakistan works. Why would I expect cricket to?" I initially wholeheartedly agreed. Everything is hopeless, nothing works, and mediocrity is all around us. But then I thought, wait, there is something that works in Pakistan. Coke Studio. Coke Studio, which began in 2008 as the country's ultimate music jam session, has provided a plethora of memorable songs through the years. Spellbinding lyrics and videos touch a chord within us at such a deep level. Music for the soul, really. Appreciated by Pakistanis of all stripes, Coke Studio Pakistan has received much love and recognition from across the border as well. The Coke Studio franchise has been in many countries, including India, Philippines, Africa, and the Middle East. But the magic of Coke Studio Pakistan has not been replicated. Paradoxically, I think Coke Studio in Pakistan works not despite what is happening in this country, but because of it. Truth be told, so much of the creative beauty of Coke Studio comes from a place of sadness and loss, of unfulfilled potential. Pakistanis have much to offer, but the space we find ourselves in is narrow and constricted.
Thank you, Farrukh. Amber, I want to ask you, Amber is somebody who would tell me, we both live in Abu Dhabi, and she would tell me, she used to be really active on social media with Pakistani politics, always involved, really passionate, following all the news down to the T. But more recently, Amber, you said to me that you've had to detach, not least of all because of your mental health. Talk to us about why it was important to create that little bit of distance from everything that's going on in Pakistan as someone living outside.
I don't know how much candor is allowed on this forum, so I'll just dilute my response. Saba, for me, the decades of hope has turned into delusion. I'm emotionally fatigued. And I was heavily invested in the country's politics. And of course, deep down, I still feel for my country. But मेरा background तुम्हें पता है singing से है. I got tired of singing, requesting, listening to Hum Dekhenge by Iqbal Bano. Faiz Saab wrote it in like 1979, 46 years ago. Or Iqbal Bano sang it in 1986, an iconic composition of Hum Dekhenge. और हम अभी तक वही गा रहे हैं with the same fervor. For what? Nothing has changed. And I also am tired of seeing pictures on social media of the glorified Pakistan in the 60s and the 70s decade with a comparison drawn to the present. And what do you see? It just depicts nothing but astounding regression in every way. And then I see pictures, similar pictures of a comparison drawn past and present of the UAE, where I've lived for 22 years. And I see the tremendous progress, and I've witnessed it. Okay, one can argue they're a rich country, they have oil, but then you also see similar pictures of India and Bangladesh, who were grappling with the population problem. And yet, and I'm not saying that it doesn't exist in those countries, they still have the population control issue, but they've stirred it in a way, they've cultivated an environment where the focus has been on education, and also education with the latest technology, and you see astounding, tremendous progress there. उनके पास तो oil नहीं है, उनके पास vision है. Farrukh के essay में Farrukh ने mention किया about the brain drain. In any country which has a vision to progress, they would be worried about the brain drain that's happening in our country. We've seen the statistics, mass migration, people want to leave the country, but not us. हमें कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता लोग जाएं, हम fixated हैं gold और brass mines. Gold निकलेगा, brass निकलेगा तो country progress करेगी.
We actually encourage it.
Yes.
Labor export is more than our goods export.
Exactly. So why aren't we concerned about this educated professionals? They're leaving the country in hordes. So this is the reason, like I said, emotional fatigue. I just decided to take a back seat. And yes, of course, hope is there. Faiz Sahab, again, I would quote, और भी दुख हैं ज़माने में मोहब्बत के सिवा, राहतें और भी हैं वसल की राहत के सिवा. But having said that, sequence change करके उनका जो पहले इससे पहले वाला couplet है, वो भी है कि लौट जाती है उधर को भी नज़र क्या कहिए, और you know, so complete detachment तो नहीं possible. Indifference नहीं है. Yes, indifference is worse than detachment. बस emotional fatigue है, and that's all.
Yes, Amber, absolutely relatable at so many levels. Junaid, I want to pick up on where I started when I said one of the reasons I put the anthology together was कि अक्सर अमूमन पाकिस्तान के बारे में जब हम सुनते हैं, it's through breaking news headlines. Something's going wrong somewhere, there's a Western media narrative. Talk to us about what's getting, ठीक है, वो मसले हैं, we're not denying those, but what gets missed when Pakistan is viewed from a breaking news sticker or a screen? And can literature and the arts and storytelling, आपका इतना अरसे से ताल्लुक है with this and theatre, can that offer us a voice on a global stage?
जी सबा, देखें दुख इस बात का होता है कि दुनिया जो हमें जानती है पाकिस्तान को, वो हमेशा कुछ ऐसी ख़बरों से और ऐसे ज़रियों से जानती है कि जहाँ पर एक नेगेटिव एलिमेंट होता है कि ये पता नहीं क्या जगह है, ये लोग कैसे हैं, किस तरह की कौम है, यहाँ पे शायद हर वक्त ही बम धमाके होते रहते हैं या हर वक्त ही यहाँ पर कत्ल गारत गरी होती है, क्या कुछ होता रहता है इस मुल्क में. लेकिन जो हमारी ख़ूबसूरती है, जो हमारा कल्चर, हमारी सकाफ़त, हमारी शायरी, हमारा अदब, हमारी मौसीकी, हमारे रक़्स, हमारी कहानियाँ, इतना कुछ है और इतना डाइवर्स है, डाइवर्सिटी जिस इस मुल्क में इतनी ज़्यादा है, कराची से लेके आप हुंजा तक चले जाइए, इतने डिफरेंट जो ज़बानें, कल्चर्स, हर तरह की आपको यहाँ पे खाने, हमारे बेशुमार चीज़ें यहाँ पे आपको मिलेंगी। ये गुलदस्ता है बहुत खूबसूरत, और वो गुलदस्ता जब इस मुल्क से बाहर जाता है तो खो जाता है। मुझे ये लगता है कि इट्स इनकम्बेंट ऑन ऑल ऑफ अस, स्पेशली दोज ऑफ अस हु लिव अब्रॉड, to present the picture of Pakistan which gets missed out otherwise. तो हमारी अपनी सी कोशिश ये होती है कि हम अपने मुल्क की वो तस्वीर पेश करें, वो कल्चर, वो सकाफ़त, वो रंग पेश करें जो कि रंग सिर्फ हम तक ही शायद महदूद रह गए। और ये जो एक अंबर ने बात की, बिल्कुल सही बात है कि एक डिसइल्यूजनमेंट हो गई है। हम भी जब बाहर बैठ के और हर तरफ ये ख़बरें सुनते हैं और ये बातें सुनते हैं और मुख्तलिफ आई वुड से कि फोरम्स में बैठ के हमें डिफेंड करना पड़ता है अपने मुल्क को, तो एट सम लेवल हम ये सोचते हैं कि हम कब तक ये करेंगे और कब तक हम एक डिफेंसिव पे रह के खेलेंगे। आपने फैज़ साहब का ज़िक्र किया, अंबर आपने भी और फ़र्रुख आपने भी, मुख्तलिफ़ लोगों ने। तो फैज़ साहब ने आज से बहुत बरसों पहले, I think when I was fresh out of university and I had started reading a lot of Urdu books, उस वक्त बड़ा शौक़ चढ़ा था कि उर्दू की किताबें पढ़ी जाएं और शायरी को एक्सप्लोर किया। And that was the time when I actually started reading Faiz. तो एक नज़म पढ़ी फैज़ साहब की, जिसकी मैं चंद लाइनें ही सिर्फ सुनाऊंगा जो कि रिलेट करती हैं उस डिसइल्यूजनमेंट से। और उसको फिर बहुत अरसे के बाद सिंगर्स ने गाना भी शुरू किया कि फैज़ साहब ने कहा कि हम तो मजबूर वफ़ा हैं मगर है जाने जहाँ, अपने उशाक़ से ऐसे भी कोई करता है, तेरी महफ़िल को खुदा रखे अब तक कायम, हम तो मेहमान हैं घड़ी भर के, हमारा क्या है। दिस इज़ व्हाट वी आर सेइंग टू पाकिस्तान, अपने उशाक़ से ऐसे भी कोई करता है। सो हम तो इश्क करते हैं, हम मोहब्बत करते हैं, लेकिन जो कुछ हमें फिर आगे से देखने को मिलता है और जो चीज़ें होती हैं, ऑलवेज़ ऑन द डिफेंसिव। बट देयर इज़ अ लॉट इन पाकिस्तान दैट नीड्स टू बी टोल्ड। बहुत सारी कहानियाँ हैं जो सुनाने लायक हैं।
Farrukh, you've read from your piece about Coke Studio and talked about, you know, even within this quagmire in Pakistan, you find hope through music. Many in the audience will be able to relate to this. Talk to us about what it is about Coke Studio that you find solace from and resonance from.
I mean, it's just great music. It's something different. It's not run of the mill. It's genuine creativity, I would say, and it's sustained excellence. It's not like there's a one-off song or a one-off season that's done well. I think what I find interesting in Coke Studio, and I think and there are other examples of that as well. KLF, to be honest, is another example. Saba, I think, regularly hosts at the Emirates Lit Festival in Dubai, and Dubai is known for all the right reasons. I think KLF is a much better organized, much better attended. It's got a lot more gravitas than the Emirates Lit Festival. But these pockets of examples that we have in this country, I just feel that there is a lot of innate talent that this country has. As being a chief strategy officer at a large bank in Pakistan, what our bank recently did was we hired a few thousand people who did not have undergraduate degrees, people who just sort of passed their metric or their inter, because the thought process was that there is again a lot of latent talent. It gets lost because people can't complete their education for financial and other reasons, and the initial results that we have gotten in some cases are that they're just outstanding individuals, people who can potentially someday have very senior management positions at the bank or lead the bank. So that talent exists in Pakistanis, and I just want the narrative to shift from what's wrong with Pakistan, which is probably the fault of a few hundred or a few thousand policymakers, which we don't really, which we can't help, but not really throw the baby out with the bathwater, and not feel bad about who we are as Pakistanis, just because our country's in this quagmire. Because I think there are hugely talented people in this country, and some of them who succeed despite the odds, you know. So I think that's kind of what it is, and I just feel that some of Coke Studio's songs, I'm sure all of you have heard them, they're hauntingly beautiful, some of them, you know, and it's just something else, to be honest.
Khaled Saab, if I can ask you to read a little bit from your piece. It's this passionate, beautiful piece, and I would want the audience to hear from it.
हेलो हाँ अंबर की बात पे मुझे एकदम याद आया कि the only brains that our ruling elite is interested in is brain masala. ठीक है ना, तो वो भूल जाएंगे, उनको brain drain की फिक्र होगी. तो और कोक की जब आप बात कर रहे हैं तो इसमें सूंघने वाला भी शामिल होगा मुझे लगता है. Anyways, there goes nothing. It's a little piece. I'm happy that I requested Saba to select it for me. पढ़ देते हैं. Today I know for sure and can easily recall all the lies I was told to live and was living. What fools these mortals be rings truer with each passing day. It's not that we never had it, but somewhere very early down the road, we seem to have totally lost it. How fondly I remember the feeling of being a citizen of a progressive, modern, moving in the right direction country. There was no bigotry, no obvious intolerance, no religious or ethnic divide as such. There were nightclubs, discos, bars, proper liquor shops, and even proper designated red light areas. Even the mosques, temples, churches, and synagogues coexisted as in any developed country. Reality has now been replaced by delusion, truth by lies, or sugar-coated at that. With every despotic, dynastic democrat, I would associate hopes of a newer, better tomorrow, only to be disappointed yet again. The beautiful dream turned into a nightmare, a dreadful one at that. Now it seems it was a bad idea for the countries to separate. The divide and all that ensued after it looks like an evil scheme to weaken a strong home. Well, one thing is for sure, we have mostly been fed lies about how glorious the tyrants have been and what great leaders they were. That they were the ones who put us on the path of progress, winning wars and laying their lives down for us and the motherland. Maybe a few in their simplicity did so. We have been lapping it all up from the state-controlled newspapers and television. We were taught these lies in our schools and history books. You want to build anew? Not on the same crooked, bent, and moth-eaten foundations. Dig in deeper, wrench out, obliterate, do away with the old one, and build a new, sturdier, stronger foundation based on real people power and not powerful people. Every wrong in the society is our own fault. We are the ones who have always paved the way to get rid of democracy and real democrats in the first place. Aren't we like the rats who gnaw at the floor of the ship, and as it starts to sink, we, the rats, are the first ones to abandon the ship? Do we want to be remembered as rats in the history books? The choice is ours, and ours only.
Thank you, Khaled Saab. Thank you so much. I'm going to open it up to the floor for questions, but before doing that, I have one final question for our panelists. You know, a few years ago, I heard a quote. I work at New York University in Abu Dhabi, and we had a guest lecturer there, and he shared a quote by Sir Henry David Thoreau. This is a mashed up version of the quote. I want to share it with each of our panelists and end with that and then open it to the floor. The quote says, "Most men and women lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them." Most men and women lead lives of quiet desperation and go to the grave with the song still in them. I want to end by asking each of you, what is your song for yourself, for Pakistan, and what does it mean to be Pakistani? I'll start with you, Omar.
I'm still trying to figure that out. I don't know. It's whatever you want it to mean, whatever is important to you, I guess.
Yeah.
That's your song.
Right. Khaled Saab?
Look what they've done to my song, Ma. Look what they've done to my song. They've tied it up in a plastic bag and they turned it upside down, Ma. Look what they've done to my song. Yirunara.
Thank you so much. Junaid?
Well, I would. Hello.
Is the mic working?
Hello.
उनका माइक खोल दीजिए.
Hello. Okay, sorry. Well, I think I would just say कि चले चलो के वो मंजिल अभी नहीं आई. That's it.
Amber and Farrukh, last words.
Song for Pakistan, only a change. That's all I can say.
I think I would just say that from my perspective and the vantage point that I operate from, to be honest, one needs to give up on the government. The real change will happen in this country through the private sector, through individuals. And to be honest, if each one of us can play a small part in that, we will have done our bit based on, again, our strengths. So yes, I see hope. I see hope through the people and through the private sector of this country.
I think that's a really good note to open it up for questions, that you do see hope, and I think that's the only way to go. I'd like to open it up to the audience for questions. And sorry, Junaid and Amber, that I didn't get a chance to ask you to read, but when you pick up the book, you'll see how powerful their essays are. Ji, please. Can we get a mic? Is it working?
I think so.
Okay,
I hope so.
We can hear you. Ji.
First of all, thank you so much, Amber, for this memorable session. It's been very, Saba.
Nahin, no
It's
problem.
been very poignant, very bittersweet, and interspersed with bits, flashes of humor. So my question is for any member of this panel: how cathartic was writing this specific piece for you? And has writing it brought any clarity to your complicated relationship with this country?
That's a great question.
Extremely cathartic. I don't know if it has brought clarity. I don't know if it's solved, if it's brought a solution, but it certainly brought clarity and extremely cathartic. And I think perhaps for all of us, it was quite an emotional experience.
Yeah.
You know.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions? Yes, we've got a question there, please. At the
Do you think that this sentiment that you're expressing about identity, about quest, about home, is just restricted to us? Or is this really a global phenomenon? if you look at it, even in that great country, shining city on a hill, they are in a trauma trying to make their country great again because they think they failed. So is this really something that we are experiencing on a global basis, and does that in some ways give us optimism because maybe we had a head start?
Yeah, I think I'd like to take that because, to be honest, just the title of the book, of course, it's got the 1,000 rupee note on it, but it's home, it's complicated. So you're, I think, definitely right. It's a global phenomena. I think some of the things that I was seeing, being an avid, sports fan, and I mentioned to Saba as well, is that you take, these are very extreme examples, but take the examples of Lionel Messi and Novak Djokovic, two of the greatest athletes of our time. And Messi recently won the World Cup with Argentina in 2022, and Djokovic won the Olympic gold for Serbia last year in 2024. And if you go and watch their interviews, these are people who are the greatest of all time in their sports. And they say that the crowning achievement of their whole career is having won the medal or the accolade for the country. None of the individual medals or the club medals or championship mattered as much. And it's not just what they said, you could also see how they felt and reacted. So I just again think that that's 100% true. And I do think we have a head start. And I think we can draw some comfort from there. We should just, I think for me to answer the question that you said, I don't think clarity is yet there. Self-awareness, I think, is a bit more, has happened and has come because of writing this. And we just need to understand that we are going through an identity crisis and we need to find our way in this world as Pakistanis.
Yes, somebody at the back. Could you get us a mic there, please? Yes, thank you.
Thanks a lot. I just wanted to say that this is a great effort putting this book together.
Thank you.
और पाकिस्तान की काफ़ी बुक्स मिलती हैं तारीख़ पे और तज्ज़िये मिलते हैं सियासत पे और सोसाइटी पे, लेकिन ये जो पूरी एक तरह की पाकिस्तान की हिस्ट्री है ऑफ द पीपल, द प्रोफेशनल्स जिनको मुल्क छोड़ के जाना पड़ा और उनकी लाइफ स्टोरीज़ क्या हैं, उनके तासुरात क्या हैं, तो ये भी एक पाकिस्तान की हिस्ट्री एंड आई अप्रिशिएट इट.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. We've got one question here, please. I'll just come to you after that. Ji.
मैं समझती हूँ क्या हमारी जो पाकिस्तानी आइडेंटिटी है इट इज़ अ कंप्लीट, क्या हमारी जो इंडस वैली की जो सिविलाइजेशन के थ्रू जो रियल हिस्ट्री है उसको हमने आइडेंटिफाई किया है, हम उससे रिलेट कर पाए हैं, या हम अभी तक गोल चक्कर में घूम रहे हैं अपनी आइडेंटिटी ना होने की वजह से, ये सारे मसाइल के जड़ है या नहीं?
Khaled साहब, would you like to take that?
आप सही कह रही हैं. मेरे हिसाब से तो गोल चक्कर ही में है. चलता हूँ थोड़ी दूर हर एक राह के साथ, पहचानता नहीं हूँ अभी राहबर को मैं. अभी एक आता है हमें कहता ईरानी है, एक आता है कहता है अरबी हैं. इंडस वैली की कोई बात ही नहीं करता. अरे भाई हम इंडस वैली के हैं यार, हमारे होंगे. ये तो यहाँ एक ज़माने में फ़ैशन था, हर आदमी अपने अजीज़ व अकारिब बुलाता था. अफ़गानिस्तान से घोड़े पे बैठ के आए थे हाथ में तलवार लेके. अब वो चला के ज़माना. वी आर फ्रॉम हियर, दिस इज़ आवर सॉइल, दिस इज़ आवर लैंड. हाँ, हमें डिसाइड करना पड़ेगा. सारा मसला ही यही है कि हम कभी अरब की गोद में बैठते हैं, कभी फ़ारस की गोद में बैठते हैं. अपनी जो धरती माँ है उसकी गोद को छोड़ने पे तुले में हम. वी मस्ट नॉट डू दैट.
थैंक यू खालिद साहब.
Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.
My name is Sakina Shahid and I'm from Generation School. I'm a student, so I feel a bit overwhelmed. कितने सारे
Welcome.
सारे लोग हैं यहाँ पे, so talented and with such great opinions. I just wanted to share a reflection and a question as well. Miss Amber ने बात की थी about feminism in terms of how it's it's not always the same. And I would like to add that it's a very insightful way that you shared, because आजकल के लोग सिर्फ modern feminism पे focus करते हैं, लेकिन हमारी जो वालिदैन हैं, हमारी जो mothers हैं, हमारी grandmothers हैं, उन्हें बहुत अच्छे से इसको exhibit किया है. तो that was really nice. And I also wanted to ask, I'm still learning about my homeland, and I wanted to ask all of your opinions. What is another thing other than Coke Studio which makes Pakistan a very hopeful place to live in?
Thank you so much, and I'm so happy कि आप जी I was just saying thank you for your question, and I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you very much. जी अंबर.
मैं एक आपको सजेशन देना चाहूँगी, क्योंकि आप स्कूल में पढ़ती हैं. ये जो वाइट फेमिनिज़म का कॉन्सेप्ट है ना, ये हम पे इम्पोज किया जा रहा है. अगर आप कुछ लिटरेचर पढ़ना चाह रही हैं तो राफिया ज़करिया पाकिस्तानी अमेरिकन हैं, उनकी एक किताब आई है 2 years back, 2-3 years back. It's called Against White Feminism. I would urge you to read that book. It's amazing, and it negates the concept of the Western feminism that is being imposed on us. So that's a very good book for school की बच्चियाँ मुझे नज़र आ रही हैं. आप लोग सबसे मैं रिक्वेस्ट करूँगी कि ज़रूर वो किताब पढ़ें. और आगे you can answer this question.
नहीं, मैं सिर्फ इतना आप ही की बात से इत्तेफाक करते हुए कहना चाह रही थी कि अक्सर हमारी जो मदर्स और ग्रैंड मदर्स हैं, उनकी कहानियाँ हम नहीं सुनते. They were silent warriors, they were quietly fierce, confident women. लेकिन all we hear about is the brand of feminism that is visible now, and a lot of that has been copy pasted from the West without thinking about कि हमारी local conditions क्या हैं, हमारी local औरतों की ज़रूरतें क्या हैं. And Amber and I talk about this a lot. I write and research about it immensely. So I'm really thankful for your question. ये एक बहुत अहम मौजू है, and Amber's piece brings it up beautifully. With that, I think
one last, जो आपका second point था ना, कि what else makes us hopeful other than Coke Studio is you.
Yes.
You know, it's your generation.
Absolutely. Thank you, Omar, and thank you so much for being with us today. There is a book signing at Liberty at 1:45. Aapka aane ka bahut shukriya, and I hope you find this. Sorry, just before we end, I do want to give a shout out. I've got Sundus in the audience who has also contributed. Sundus, can you give us a wave? And also Ruby Heather, who's not with us today because she's not well, but lots of her friends and family are here. So I hope you'll consider getting a copy of the book, and I want to thank all our panelists. Thank you so much.
Thank you to our brilliant panelists. Thank you for being.